Om Shri Sai Ram. Living in your prema and swirling in the prema sagara, Swami, we invoke your divine presence and blessings. We, your children, offer ourselves at your lotus feet and welcome you to today's session. Dearest speaker, revered elders, and the devoted participants, welcome to the seventh day of the summer course morning session on Indian culture and spirituality. A beautiful morning with bright rays of hope, we bask into another day of insightful journey. Let us commence the holy session by chanting three times Omkaram and Sai Gayatri. ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्. Sai Ram. Our dearest Pranasakha Swami always bestows us with knowledge for life in the form of his chosen instruments and students. With much delight, I take the opportunity to welcome the speaker for today. She is Professor Dr. P.L. Rani Ma'am, Associate Professor and the head of the Department of English Language and Literature at Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. Rani Ma'am, a meritorious Balvika student from Kerala, joined the Anantapur campus as a student for her intermediate course in 1988, after which she completed her Bachelor's in Science in Physics in 1993. On Swami's direction, she pursued her post-graduation in English language. Swami then granted her the boon to render her service as a member of the university faculty in 1996, and for her, this is the biggest blessing. In the 3 decades at in her 3 decades at Anantapur campus, she has actively contributed to multifarious activities like the Hostel Publications Division, various cultural events, and in many co-curricular activities. Rani Ma'am was a former member of the Women's Band of the Anantapur campus and has been instrumental in the growth of Women's Brass Band ever since. She has been blessed by Bhagavan to speak in his presence on many occasions. She feels it as a blessing to be able to inspire the younger minds and direct their thoughts Godwards. Dear sisters, we are the young minds today, fortunate enough to listen to dearest Rani ma'am on the topic Summer Course for Character Building. We welcome you, ma'am, to the session. Over to you, ma'am. Sai Ram. Sai Ram, ma'am. Uh,
Hi Ram.
okay.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, ma'am. It is perfectly audible.
Sai Ram. Is the audio clear?
Yes, ma'am. It is perfectly clear, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, ma'am. Are we audible to you?
Om Shri Sai Ram. My very grateful pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Sai Ram to each one of you who has taken time out from your routine life to do something different, something ennobling, and something good for and to yourselves. I begin with grateful pranams because I can't stop being grateful to Bhagwan for continuously giving me assignments of this kind to monitor my spiritual progress. You know, in the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Bhagwan's University, we have a system called CIE, Continuous Integral Education. And this is also continuous internal evaluation. So Bhagwan has to keep monitoring our progress. And I feel it is when he decides that he needs to check my progress, spiritual progress, that he sends me assignments of this kind. So the opportunity is entirely mine, the blessing is mine, and thank you, organizers, for this beautiful morning. As you are aware, this talk is going to be based on the last 3 chapters of Summer Showers 1972. And I must admit that in the given 1.5 hours, it is close to impossible to cover all the 3 chapters. So I have picked for you a few of the most important things that struck me as significant for the Sai youth. The title, Summer Course for Character Building, has 2 key concepts, 2 key terms, 2 key phrases, the summer course and character building. So that's how I'm going to split my talk, to talk to you a little bit about the summer courses in the past, and then to talk about character building. And then before we close, we will connect the two to know how important summer courses are in character building for the youth. The first ever summer course Bhagwan designed in 1972 But the speciality is that it was a 1 month long summer course. Unlike today, we have the minuscule versions. People have it for a week, for 10 days. Sometimes at the university, we even have it for 3 days. And there were 5 lectures a day, unlike you have today, one lecture a day. And it happened all the 6 days of the week with a discourse every evening. The picture that you see on your screen is from the 1972 summer course. I thought it's very important because it's right in the morning to have a lot of Bhagwan come into this discussion, and for you to be able to see Swami in a lot of pictures. So I've tried and put in a lot of relevant pictures here. So this summer course, and I was a couple of days ago, I was lucky to talk to two of my teachers who were present at the 1972 summer course. So it gave me some scanty details about how it was in the old Brindavan before the Trayi Brindavan was constructed. The entire summer course took place in a shamiana, as you can kind of make out from this picture. And all the classroom chairs on which the students sat that you can see with the writing pads there. And Bhagwan would just come in and sit like one of them with all of them on the audience side when the speakers, and Bhagwan had invited very, very renowned and eminent speakers so that student could receive maximum benefit from the talks. So when I looked at this picture, I thought, oh Swami, so how are you going to attend our summer course? And I am inspired and I'm prompted to tell you, wherever you are listening to this talk from, be watchful. Just so silently from one corner, he might just enter the room and just sit beside you to listen to the talks. So I have to be conscious and cautious that he's listening. So also everybody in the audience, as you can see in the picture, when Bhagwan is sitting beside you and listening to the talk, how much nicer, how much, of course it is, it is divinely distracting, I must say. This is what used to happen when we were going for the summer course. We would all be sitting in the Brindavan College auditorium, and there would be speakers speaking in the morning session, and one ear and one eye would be somehow at the backside of the auditorium because Bhagwan would silently enter from the back and then would just go into one of the rows where the boys were sitting and sit amidst them, which is something that nobody wants to miss. Similarly, it is very, very possible, I'm sure you all agree with me, it is not impossible for Bhagwan to do that with any of us or with all of us, even in today's session. So hoping that you all will feel his presence physically, metaphysically, in whichever plane. Let me now go ahead. This is again some pictures from the summer course of 1973. And you find that Dr. Bhagwantam, Dr. Gokak, all very well-known people in their own areas have always associated themselves with Bhagwan and all Bhagwan's projects. And the picture that you now see is Bhagwan giving away rewards. I remember at the end of summer course, now this is another thing that we have reconciled with or sacrificed in our planning of summer course. At the end of the summer course, Bhagwan would want to just be sure that we have kind of registered everything that we heard, and we would have some kind of an exam. And unlike feeling very tense about writing an exam, people would be very happy because if you scored very well in this exam, a so-called exam, because it was an opportunity that Bhagwan created to encourage us to learn things of this kind. So at the end of it, those who scored well would receive some award, some reward. I remember one of the times Bhagwan created a gold chain for a girl who had scored the top marks in this exam. So these were all tiny facets of the summer course that Bhagwan himself organized. This is the 1974 summer course, and I was reading up some blog yesterday with Sathya Sai students, which they've recorded beautifully a lot of things for history and for posterity. And I discovered that it was in this summer course that Bhagwan sang Love is My Form, the English bhajan that we are all very fond of today. I believe there were a lot of participants from abroad in this summer course. And in the valedictory session, that's where Bhagwan released the song Love is My Form, and you know the rest of the song. So I thought these were tiny details about the summer course that might be interesting to the Sai youth. Now, going to my own personal experience with the summer course. I have been blessed to attend about half a dozen summer courses, starting from 1990, the second set of summer courses that Bhagwan had organized. And I will recall to you quickly because, like I said in the title, the two things that stand out for me is summer course and character building, and I'm still in the first half. So I will quickly recall one or two very beautiful incidents that I remember from summer course, because Bhagwan used the summer course to reveal to us his innate divinity. You would find him taking care of minute details like getting mangoes distributed to students, checking on whether we are eating enough lunch. In fact, I remember one of the summer courses, Bhagwan announcing something as trivial as this, you'll be surprised. Bhagwan saying, I don't know if it was 93, 94, some summer course, Bhagwan said, you know, a lot of students stay in our hostels. And if all of them have to finish bath before 8 in the morning to come for my darshan and then go for their classes, they wake up as early as 2 a.m. to have their bath in turns. And therefore, they feel very tired in the afternoon. So starting today, I'm going to cancel the afternoon sessions, Swami said, so that they're very fresh when they come for the evening discourses. And as Bhagavan was talking, he's saying, see, as I'm giving the discourse, I don't want you to miss all the good things I say because you're feeling sleepy and tired, and I know this is the reason. Bhagavan was very practical, very, very practical. Instead of chastising the students for feeling sleepy in the evening, he went to the root of the problem and he said, okay, they wake up very early to accommodate their morning routine, so let's give the afternoon a break. But then he also advised, he said, don't spend the afternoon in chit-chatting and worthless talking. Go through your notes, recall what you heard in the morning. So this is what Swami would do. So he was a very, very practical decision maker, a practical planner. From that role that we would see Bhagwan in, it was very important to also, I would think, for illusion, Maya can easily delude us. We would just say he is just one amongst us. So he would pick and choose incidents and occasions to reveal his divinity to us. So here I am. What you see on your screen is a small excerpt from a discourse given on 21st May 1991. I'm talking about the second summer course that I was attending. And as you can see, Bhagavan was talking about, actually the entire summer course was on the topic of Upanishads. And he was talking about Brahmajnana, Atmajnana, and all those kinds of things. When he suddenly started talking about what's the secret behind birth and death. And Bhagavan says, one who is born must necessarily die. Are people able to live as long as they want? Someone might tell himself, I am healthy, I can live for 10 more years, but that very evening he might die of a car accident. A good health does not guarantee a long life. And I remember this line very, very vividly because in those years, we had the habit of writing down every bit of the discourse. Digital technology was not so advanced as it is today. There was no radio site to capture all this for us. Bhagwan would personally, and that reminds me, on 19th of May, 1991, in the afternoon, there was suddenly a lot of hustle bustle in the hostel, and they said Bhagwan has come out, and we were all rushed out of the hostel to the Kalyan Mandap in Brindavan, where Swami was standing with a pen, a badge, and a diary to give to each of us so that we can make notes of the summer course. And that's a prized possession that many of us have today because Bhagwan personally handed out the diary. So the notes of the summer course is one of those, again, treasures that I have in my bookshelf today. So I remember these two lines very particularly because Swami was talking about, kind of out of context. You can actually go to the 1991 summer showers and look at this discourse. I've picked it verbatim from there. He said, you might think you have good health and you might live a long life, but that may not be the case. The discourse was over. All of us went back to the hostel. The next morning, when we woke up, there was an unusual stillness in the premises of Brindavan campus. Slowly, the news floated in that there would not be any darshan that day, which was absolutely shocking and very unusual, because until then, in the 90s especially, we never heard of a single day when Bhagwan didn't come out for darshan. And then gradually we got to hear from our teachers, because when you're in the summer course, you're kind of cut off from the world. You're not really following the news. You're doing a lot of inner connection rather than the internet connection. So we gradually got to know that the then Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, was assassinated the previous night. So Section 144 was declared. There was no darshan because people couldn't gather, and the summer course was cancelled for that day. Proof is, if you look at summer course, you will find that summer showers of 1991, you will find that on 22nd, there is no discourse recorded because there was no summer course. So all of us had to stay indoors in the hostel. This is a very simple thing. So whole day we stayed indoors, and about 7:30 in the evening, we went for our dinner to the Kalyan Mandap, which is just beside Bhagwan's building in Brindavan. And Bhagwan, as much as we longed to see Bhagwan, he also longs to see his devotees and his children and his students. So by evening, probably the Section 144 was lifted, and then Swami said he would come into the dining hall when we are there for dinner. So Swami came, and as soon as Swami came, as he was entering, and I remember this very vividly, Swami said, Chusara, did you see? Yesterday, I said about death. If I had said something directly, they would have said Sai Baba entered politics. That is why Swami did not tell anything directly. Kani Swami kanni telusu, meaning Swami knows everything. And then, of course, Swami sat for a bit and started telling us how yesterday he was the Prime Minister, today he's the late Prime Minister. Everything is temporary. This world is temporary. Human life is unsure, and so on. So this episode, it's only later in retrospect that I realize when Bhagwan said this at 5 in the evening and the incident happened at 10 in the night, next day evening, Bhagwan indirectly points out to us how he is the Antaryami, he's the omnipresent one, he's the omniscient one, and he knows everything. So this is one insight that I've received from one of the summer courses. Plenty come to my mind even as I'm talking, but just to keep to time, I will go ahead to the next. This is again 91, June 3rd. The summer course was over. On June 2nd, we finished, wrote the exam. We all had to return to our own respective campuses. And suddenly in the morning, Swami called us into the auditorium. And he called only the students and the staff. And behind closed doors, Bhagwan started a discourse, which I wouldn't want to call a discourse because Bhagwan was narrating to us in such graphic detail a lot of his personal life as a young boy. He's telling us about the poverty that he had to face. He was telling us about the difficulties in going to school, in making both ends meet, in having another pair of uniform, and so on and so forth. And Bhagwan is a great narrator. So with the tiny details that were being narrated, all of us were glued to our seats, listening with great intent. And many of us had tears clouding our eyes, listening to the ordeals that Sathya went through. Poor young Sathya, what all did he go through? This was the thought that was going on probably in everybody's mind in the auditorium. Swami created that Maya. Almost towards the end of that session, when everybody was saying, poor Sathya, suddenly Swami said, he waved his hands. No, before he waved his hands, he said, Kani, you know how Swami can say that in a thundering voice. But Yuga Yugandaralu ee chetilo unnai. Yugas are in these palms, Bhagavan said. So that was a sudden transition. Here you are saying, I couldn't even afford my textbooks. I walked all the way to Pushpagiri for the scout. You know all the stories from Satyam Shivam Sundaram. The next second, Bhagwan is talking about yugas are in these palms. And then he said, Namakpote chudandi. If you don't believe, look at this. And he waved his palm. And then there came out what you see in this picture. It was a beautiful diamond-studded pendant of a swan. It was a 3D swan studded all over with diamond. The central part is the swan. And then Swami told us the story. He said, this is the Mangal Sutra of Nala and Damayanti. When Nala was going to get married to Damayanti, he asked her what would she like as the Mangal Sutra. And she said, it is that swan, if you know the story, that carried their message across the lake. So since it carried our messages, let us have the swan as the pendant in our Mangal Sutra. So Bhagwan brought this from that age. Then he came down, as you can see, into the auditorium, row by row on the gents' side, and along all the aisles on the ladies' side, Bhagwan came around to show this pendant. So once again, this was a sudden contrast. There was Bhagwan, who was telling us all his ordeals and all his difficulties as a little boy by the name Sathya in a tiny hamlet in Puttaparthi. And then in a second, he turns to tell us what divine power he has to make anything present from any age at any time. These were some of the most beautiful moments etched in my mind about the summer courses that I had attended. Now, let me make a bridge between this summer course and the character building that is the next part of our conversation. In Indian philosophy, there is this belief that to receive self-knowledge, because I remember last week when I was talking to the another set of students of the summer course, one of the things that we spoke about from the Bhagavad Gita is, who am I? Keep asking, who am I? We say, I am Rama, I am Sita, I am Krishna, I am Rani, I am Uma. In all this, Rama, Krishna, Uma, Rani is different. The only thing that is constant is the capital I. And it is that I that we have to seek, Bhagwan says. So to get that self-knowledge of who I really am, Indian philosophy proposes 3 methods. They are called Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Shravanam is listening. You know, in the good old days, once again, there was no digital technology, there was no printing. Everything was written in manuscripts. So the disciples sat at the feet of the Guru and listened to the Guru. I don't think they even needed notebooks and pens. So they listened to the Guru to absorb the knowledge that came from the Guru. And then once the Shravanam or listening is over, you have to do Mananam or recollection. You have to, after you leave the class, recall, recapitulate what you've heard, and then do Nididhyasanam, Dhyasa, Ayasa, make efforts to use your dhi, your intellect, to get that nidhi, that treasure. So that is crucial, that you analyze, you contemplate, and arrive at your own self-knowledge. And this self-knowledge is possible only and only if we can contemplate on what we hear, what we see, what we know, etc. So this session, today's session, which is nearly, I am told, like a valedictory session, is also crucial. This point is crucial because all that you've listened to in all these days, it's important to recollect and then to contemplate on them in the coming days. If you notice in the pyramid, along with Shravanam, I have written Swadhyaya, because in today's world, you may not have to necessarily only sit at the feet of the Guru and listen. You may not necessarily have to listen to a speaker like me in the summer course. You can do Swadhyaya, your own reading of spiritual literature. And I deliberately put it there because going ahead in the coming days, based on what you read a little bit about Bhagavad Gita the other day, you heard a little bit about the Vedas, you heard a little bit about character building. You might want to actually go and read a lot more about any of these topics that has impressed and interested you. And only if you do this, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, is this entire exercise of summer course going to be fruitful. A lot of people have put in a lot of effort, time, energy, money, and resources to organize this. So all the participants, it's my plea that we all try to do Mananam and Nididhyasanam in the coming days. What is it that we have to do the Mananam of? Bhagwan has said, 4 wheels of a chariot that will lead us safely to our destination. We have all set out on a journey. Once you take human birth, it's actually like setting out on a journey, and everybody has one destination. And until we arrive there, we will go on taking birth after birth after birth, because the destination is the same for everybody, whether we accept it, we admit it, we know it, we work towards it or not. So the number of births we take vary depending on probably our awareness about reaching that destination. And Swami says, the 4 wheels of the chariot. All these quotations I've picked from these 3 chapters of Summer Showers, so I hope you're familiar with them. The 4 wheels of the chariot that lead man safely to his destination are character, truth, sacrifice, and tolerance. And in my humble opinion, a man of character will embody in himself truth, sacrifice, and tolerance, which is why today we will talk about character and character building, as the title goes. I quickly went to the root of this word, character. It is a Greek word, kerasin, and the original meaning is to sharpen, to cut, to engrave. And then I remembered this analogy that Swami gives. How do you engrave? How do you sculpt a statue out of stone? You don't bring in anything new. In a piece of crude rock that is shapeless, you have to remove certain parts that are not necessary for the form to emerge. So if you have a stone, Krishna is already present, Lord Krishna is already present in the stone. All you have to do is to chip off parts of the stone that are not necessary so that the idol will emerge. And I feel character building is something like this. We have to just chip off all that is unnecessary in our personalities, unnecessary in our lives, cluttering our life, so that the beautiful divine form that we are will slowly emerge. So it is removing those unwanted bits that I like to call as character building. In these discourses, Bhagavan talks about how this is implicit in nature, presence of contradictory things. You get gold, but you don't get it from nature in its pure form. Quartz, impure form, goes through a whole process before it becomes the invaluable gold. Human beings, There is in the same person anger at some points in time, mercy at some other point in time. Both, just like impure metal turns to gold, an angry man is compassionate at some time. The tasty, delicious food that we eat turns into the useless, once it's digested, the useless material. Similarly, everything in nature, Bhagwan says, has these two contrasts, the pure and the impure. It is through a process. If an angry man has to become by nature a kind man, a process happens within him, a transformation. If impure gold has to become pure gold, a process through the furnace it goes. If food has to become the waste material, the waste matter, it goes through a process of digestion. So everything for the impure to turn to the pure and vice versa, there is a process of refinement, of transformation. So character building happens through a process. It's not, okay, from today I'm going to be truthful and I just start telling the truth. It's not as simple as that. It is a process. And once again, let me go back to the idea of mananam and nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam is a higher level where you analyze, where you critically self-reflect, which is important for this refinement process to happen. A few tips that I've picked up from these three discourses specifically to talk about character building. I liked the statement from Bhagwan. He says, character is our wealth, good conduct is our treasure. So obviously it means character and good conduct are very, very precious things. But look at the third line that Swami says. Knowledge of God is the foundation for both. That gave me a lot of relief, because if we have to build character, if we have to have good conduct, one of the basics that we need is knowledge of God, which to some extent we already have, all of us. And I felt very blessed and I felt very grateful when I read this line, because I don't know, in these many years of my reading Swami's literature, never came across something like this, which is so powerful and so simple looking. If you want to have good character, if you want to have good conduct, both of which are very precious, the most important thing is to have knowledge of God. And all of us in this session, the Sai youth, those who are participating in the summer course, are already blessed with the knowledge of God. We know that God exists. We believe in God. We trust in Him. We have been blessed with the knowledge of a personal God like Bhagwan Baba for each of us. So I just think the foundation for character building is already there. And once I read this, I didn't feel like actually going to the tiny nitty-gritties that people always talk about when we talk about character building, because I felt knowledge of God takes care of everything else, because knowledge of God will lead to the knowledge of the good, and knowledge of good will actually keep us in good conduct and obviously sterling character. So I should ideally be closing my session with this one powerful statement that really shook me off my feet. The knowledge of God is enough if you want to have character building, Swami says. So let us now work on improving our knowledge of God so that automatically good conduct and character is built. From the tips that Bhagwan gives, he gives us the story from the Mahabharata. We all know that when Krishna pretended to be asleep, Duryodhana and Arjuna arrived. They both wanted to seek help for the war. Krishna asked them to seek help. And Duryodhana, being the proud person that he was, wanted his choice to be the first. And we know Krishna offered his thousands of warriors and his whole army, or single man just himself. And Arjuna chose God, Krishna. Duryodhana chose the army, and we know on whose side success was. At in all situations, very, very important to choose God. And I think character will take care of itself. I quickly recall a beautiful incident that happened to one of my classmates. She's the uh, deputy general manager of a reputed bank in India. And this happened a couple of years ago. You know, all the banks in India, they have their audit when the financial year ends March 31st. So March end and April first week is kind of very hectic for bankers. Her two children study in Puttaparthi. So on March 31st, the children come back to school, come back from Puttaparthi home. And exactly at that point, she is firstly unable to take leave to go bring them from school. She's unable to come home on time from work because the audit is going on, and sometimes goes on till 11, 12, 1 in the night, that whole week and 10 days. So one such day, it was about 11 in the night, and her immediate boss called her and said, so are you still at office? She said, yes, sir. The auditors have not gone? No, sir. So the next day, what he did was called up the auditors and said, look here, this lady, her children have just come home for vacation from Puttaparthi because they both study at Puttaparthi. It would be very nice if you can actually allow her to go close the day's work a little earlier than midnight and allow her to go home a little on time. The next day, when the auditors came, they looked at my friend and said, Madam, your children study in Puttaparthi? Yes, sir. How do you know? Because she didn't know that her boss had made the call. Uh, then she said, not only my children, sir, I myself studied at Baba's college in Anand. Oh, really? You should have told, this is about fifth or sixth day into the audit. She said, you should have told us this on day one. And you know what they did after this? We don't actually need to audit your accounts if you are a student of Bhagwan Baba. They signed off the registers and closed the audit within a few hours after that. And I just think, having Bhagwan's name associated with us, we don't know in what ways identification, recognition, accomplishments, everything will come if we choose God. Look at here, this comment that they made was an authentication of the sterling character expected of someone who has the tag Sai to their name, Sai youth, Sai student, Sai devotee, whoever it is. So always choose God, and if your choice is God, the rest of the matters simply get taken care of. Now, what happened in this choice that Arjuna made? He cared for quality. Having God is no small thing, and that cannot be pitched against quantity of thousands of warriors. Arjuna had this clarity. At least before the war, he had clarity, thank God, because we all know in the battlefield, he did not have clarity, which is why we are lucky to have the Bhagavad Gita today. Any case, going back to the story of Arjuna cared for quality while Duryodhana cared for quality, Swami says. Reminds me of yet another simple incident. Once Bhagavan was going around darshan, and there would be a gentleman who would usually walk behind Bhagavan to help him carry the numerous letters that Bhagavan would collect from devotees. So there was this man who handed over a letter to Swami. Swami kept it in his bundle and handed over the whole bundle to the person, the assistant who was behind, and walked on. The gentleman devotee who had handed over the cover tapped the person who had received the bundle and said, whispered to him, "Be careful of that cover. There is a check for a huge amount in that." It was a very, he was trying to make this not very obvious. But Bhagwan, the all knowing one, what did he do? He immediately turned back, pulled out that particular cover from the pile of letters, returned it to that person, and walked on. The person was distraught. He tried to somehow shove it back. Bhagwan didn't accept it. Walking ahead a little more, there was yet another person from the crowd of devotees who handed over a letter to Bhagwan. Bhagwan took the letter, gave that single envelope to this professor who would walk behind Swami to help him with the letters, said, "Keep it in your pocket. I will take it from you later." Darshan was over. Bhagwan went to the interview room. This professor was waiting outside to hand over the letters. Bhagwan called him inside, asked him to take out the letter, that particular cover that Bhagwan had singled out for him to keep in his pocket. Bhagwan opened the envelope, took out the 2 bits of paper that were inside it, handed over one to this professor who was a witness to this sequence of events, and said, "Look at it." And what was it? It was a bank counterfoil, a paying slip counterfoil for a very, very meager amount, a 2-digit amount. I don't remember whether it was 10 or 100. I forget what the professor mentioned, but it's a very small amount. And along with it was a letter to Bhagwan to accept this offering. And then Swami said, "You know, this man is a postman. He had to give up a meal for many days to collect this much money to offer it to Swami. For Swami, this little amount is much bigger for its quality of devotion to the 15 lakhs that was in the check that the other gentleman was trying to give and trying to let everyone know." So for Bhagwan, quality of anything we do, this is about quality of devotion. Anything that we do, quality is more important than quantity. A simple tip that will go a long way in our character building. This is very beautiful because Swami says, trust God, not the world. And in his typical way, Bhagwan gives a lot of examples to drive home this very important truths. If you have a pond that is filled with water, it will be filled with frogs. The frogs are very happy to leap about. But the minute the pond dries up, the frogs leave. So also in this world, Swami says, you will, if you're powerful, if you're well known, if you have wealth, if you're of any use to anybody, use in single quotes, there will be people all around you. The minute you lose your power, you become weak, you become poor, you become friendless. This is the reality of the world, Swami has told us oftentimes. So the best thing for us to do, I'm going in the same line of choosing God, because remember the first statement that we had, knowledge of God is a foundation for character, which is why I'm continuing in the same strain. So friendship with God is a sure thing that will keep us from anything that will damage the reputation of our character. And making friendship with God is a beautiful thing. Let me tell you quickly of an incident that comes to my mind. This was year 2004. I was a young teacher, much more immature than today in my approach to things and to God. So one particular day, I was quite frustrated that Bhagwan seemed unjust and partial. It seemed that Bhagwan was always encouraging and supporting the not very fair and sincere people. It seemed that he was not giving me any attention when I deemed myself sincere and hardworking. You know how we used to measure this? You would probably laugh at it today. Every Sunday we would come to Puttaparthi from Anantapur, and if on that Sunday that we came, if Bhagwan came near us, Bhagwan took our letter, Bhagwan smiled at us, gave us a namaskar, that was kind of an indication that Bhagwan was pleased with me for everything I did the previous week. Or so I thought. Now, based on this measurement, I had felt that Bhagwan was giving a lot of attention to people who otherwise, according to me, my evaluation and judgment, egoistically, were insincere and pretentious. And here I was working so hard, working sincerely for Bhagwan, and here he was just not giving me any attention. And at this point, it might be very pertinent to tell you there's a big difference between Bhagwan's attention and Bhagwan's love. Attention is when he makes a big fuss of you in darshan ground in front of everybody, and a lot of people think you're a VIP and Swami has spoken to you. Every time he sees you, he speaks to you, etc. Very good. We must honor and treasure those moments when he has spoken to us. But attention is different from love. Bhagwan's love is unseen. Without ever once talking to you, without your ever once seeing Bhagwan, I know that in this group, there will be a lot of people who feel Bhagwan's love. You might not have received Bhagwan's attention in the physical level, but you receive a lot of love and grace at all points in time. So, any case, I was probably vying for some attention, the sum of all that I said now. So one evening in my frustration, I said, Swami, look here, you're just not very fair. So I'm cutty with you. I'm not going to talk to you. It was a very casual, childish quarrel that I was having with my Bhagwan. A day or two later, I received a phone call from a person in Puttaparthi who said, we're organizing a function and we want to hold a panel discussion. Would you like to be a part of it? And remember, I'm in this angry mood. I said, oh, I don't want to, is what I thought in my mind. I said, I'll give it some time and get back to you, and hung up. And I was talking to some friends and said, hey, remember the other day you grumbled about not getting attention? So Swami send you an opportunity. You want attention, right? Swami send you an opportunity. Say yes to it. Maybe Swami heard what you said the other day. So I said yes. And the story in short is, we had a panel discussion August 1st, 2004. After the panel discussion, Bhagwan was very pleased. He created a ring and blessed me by putting that ring into my fingers. A lot of attention was got, and I thought, oh, is this what I asked for? The whole day was filled with a lot of attention and blessings in abundance from Bhagwan. Evening after bhajan, I went back to the hostel, and all the students in the hostel were waiting eagerly because they received the news that Bhagwan had blessed me with a ring. The whole hostel gathered around me to see the ring, touch the ring. And then there was suddenly this one girl who came to me and said, "Ma'am, you know what? You're so lucky." I said, "Yeah, definitely I am." "No, ma'am, today is Friendship Day. And Swami put a ring on your fingers on Friendship Day." I said, "What? What is Friendship Day?" Can you believe I did not know what Friendship Day was? Today I know. The first Sunday of August, the world over, people celebrate it as Friendship Day. But I didn't know that day that it was Friendship Day. When this girl told me this, it struck me like a thunderbolt. I said, "Oh God." I said, "I'm cutty with you." And that's kind of what you tell your friends when you fight with them, right? And here is Bhagwan on Friendship Day. He chooses that day particularly to give me a beautiful gift and then insist on putting it into my fingers himself. So if you choose Bhagwan as your friend, whether it is love, even sometimes when it is to vent out your frustrations, when it is to fight with, he's the best friend to go to. And if he is your friend, you can never be in the wrong path. Character, sterling character, is assured because Swami says, "Tell me your company, I will tell you who you are." ABC of life, avoid bad company. So if Swami is your company, if Swami is your friend, how are you ever not going to be conducting yourselves well or having a good character? Once again, I think it goes back to the point that knowledge of God, friendship with God, trusting God, all these are sure ways in character building. Yet another thing that I picked up from the discourses. Swami says, the gist of this, just to avoid repetition, the gist of this is um, for students, because we are all youth, and we see this in the nation very often these days. I thought I should pick this point. When there is something that needs changing, Bhagwan says, let students not be aggressive and violent. Let them make a representation in a peaceful manner, and then the authorities might be in a mood to consider their representation. We are seeing in the country, whether it is CAA, whether it is any other issue, political issue. If you look at Delhi, JNU, look at across the country, maybe across the world, students have taken to violent protests. And what does Bhagwan say? He says, that's not the route for students. And once again, I recall a particular incident that a colleague of mine was privy to, was involved in. So I heard it from the horse's mouth, and this is also available on YouTube as satsang. What happened was, this colleague of mine, one night he had a dream. He was in the veranda. Swami comes out and asks, final year students. He's not a final year student, he's a faculty member. So he got up. Behind him, there were two students. And he said, "Swami, there are only three of us." Swami says, "Come inside." Calls them into the interview room. Talks to them. A lot of other things happen. I'm not going into those details. What's relevant here is, Swami says suddenly, right is right even if nobody does it. Wrong is wrong even if everybody does it. I want to repeat this for the benefit of all the youth. Right is right, even if nobody does it. Wrong is wrong, even if all do it. And then Swami, I believe, went on to say, that Africa boy. And then the people in the dream seem to know whom Swami is referring to when he's talking about Africa boy. This colleague of mine is telling the other students who didn't seem to know the Africa boy, is telling them, Swami is mentioning Anmol Mehta, who's in Africa. There was a strike in his factory and he refused to be part of it. Then Swami approved. He nodded and he said, yes, yes, right, I'm talking about that boy. And the dream got over. When this colleague of mine woke up, he doesn't remember how he knows Anmol Mehta is in Africa, is working in a factory, because Anmol Mehta was definitely one of his classmates few years ago at college. But after college, he has never got to know what Anmol Mehta is doing. He had no contact with Anmol Mehta. So he was wondering why he told Swami that it is about Anmol Mehta. The dream was over. In a couple of days, he shares this dream with a professor of his at the college. Professor says, oh, is it? Beautiful dream. And they close it. 5 days after that, when this professor was coming to college, outside the college gate, he finds a young couple. And this boy goes ahead and wishes the professor and says, sir, I studied here a couple of years ago. After Bhagwan's Mahasamadhi, this is the first time I'm coming to Puttaparthi. I'm married and my wife has not seen the campus either. Do you think I would be able to just show her around? The professor said, it's study holidays, the students are not around. It might be all right for you to go around. In any case, take the director's permission. Showed him into the director's cabin and the professor went away to his cabin. After a while, the boy comes into the professor's cabin and he says, sir, thank you for showing me into the directors. I received permission and I've shown around the campus to my wife. Meanwhile, sir, I don't know if you remember me. The professor said, yeah, I remember you definitely by face, but not by name. And then the boy said, sir, I'm Anmol Mehta. And the sir was taken aback. He said, okay, so where are you these days? I said, sir, I'm in Nigeria. Second shock. So what do you work there? He said, I work in a particular whatever institution, factory, whatever. Then this professor was even more astonished and he said, so recently did you have some trouble in your office at work? He said, not any that I can think of. Then the wife seems to have prodded him and said, remember some months ago this happened? And the boy said, yes, yes, sir. Actually, what happened was all the employees had some conditions related to the admin, to the employer. So in a fit of rage, they decided that one particular day they were all going to storm into the manager's office and make their demands. And the boy said that he felt it wasn't rightful, and he didn't want to be part of that. But he was in a quandary, in a dilemma, because if he didn't join them, they might single him out. If he joined them, the crowd, he might be just going against what his own conscience and maybe what Swami expects him to do. So he went back home wondering what to do the next day. To join the crowd that's going to storm into the manager's office, or to keep out and feel singled out. And by Bhagwan's inspiration, he decided finally to take leave from office that day and not to go to work at all. And that's precisely what he did. After he narrated this, he asked the professor, but sir, why are you asking me specifically this question? And then the sir told him, do you remember so and so as your classmate? He says, no. Have you been in touch with him? He said, no, I don't even remember him because we were 120 in our batch and I don't remember this. And then sir says, some 10 days ago, Bhagwan came in the dream of your classmate and told him that right is right even if nobody does it, wrong is wrong even if everyone does it. And mentioned the Africa boy, which in the dream Swami made the person remember or think of as you. Obviously, Anmol Mehta was filled with tears. And mind you, it was his first visit to Puttaparthi. after Bhagwan had left his physical form. So this idea that Bhagwan was watching over him even in faraway Nigeria after so many years was so reassuring to him. Well, that is the lesson of the experience. I wanted to just go back to the idea that Bhagwan did not encourage students to be part of all these aggressive protests. Next, this is another thing that I came up in the 3 chapters that we were discussing, that we are discussing. Very important that all the girl students be trained into good housewives and good mothers. You know, coming from the women's college, which was the first ever educational institution that Bhagwan opened, there are 3 things that Bhagwan would always insist on when he spoke to us. One, they are very famously known as Kattu, Bottu, Juttu. For Indian women, Bhagwan said these 3 are very important to keep up the tradition. Kattu is the way you dress yourself. Bottu is the tiny dot on the forehead, which is a sign of auspiciousness, which shows Shakti, which shows the power of a woman, which brings light and brightness to a woman's face. And Juttu, hair. Today we find people coloring it purple or pink and gold and throwing it all over and then falling over the face. And Bhagwan said, a traditional Indian girl would always be conscious of these 3, would dress modestly, will be proud to be a woman, because bangles, bindi, these things are typical uh, signals of femininity. And in the context, Bhagavan also says, aping the West is what is leading to drop and decline in tradition. Does that mean I have no regard or respect for Western culture? No. Respecting another's mother does not mean you adopt that mother. Your mother is your mother. You have respect for somebody else's mother. But you don't go and adopt somebody else's mother just because she looks more attractive. So Western culture, in the same discourse, Bhagwan says, aping the West is what is dangerous in today's youth. And like I said in my previous talk last week, is it that the Indian youth is not proud of their Indianness? No. Being proud is different from reflecting that pride in their being. And Swami gives an example here. Swami says, you love God, you adore God, you love God, but you don't reflect it in your being. It is like if you want to get rid of an illness, Swami says, you have to not only take medicine, but also follow the diet. So if you love God, if you love Bhagwan, even as you say you love him, you have to do what he tells us to do. This particular aspect, especially for women, let me tell you a quick incident that happened to one of my teachers. She's a very senior professor at Anandpur College. When she was a young, um, um, just young and just married, it was the practice in their family that she and her husband would come for every festival to Puttaparthi. But she belonged to a family, I mean, her husband's was a joint family that was very traditional, orthodox, and would like the son and the daughter-in-law to be at home for the festival. So one particular Ganesh Chaturthi festival, she came to Puttaparthi because she wanted to come to see Bhagwan, and her husband went to his parents' house. Bhagwan came for darshan, saw her at darshan, and asked her, Amy, your husband has not come? No, Swami, he has gone to his parents' house, she said. Bhagwan, who was very cheerfully inquiring this until then, The minute she gave this reply, became suddenly very serious, she says. And she didn't know what was wrong. And then Swami chastised her. Swami said, chided her. Swami said, why are you saying his parents? Why can't you say he went to my in-laws' house? A very, very small thing. One wouldn't even imagine this to be a huge problem. But look at Bhagwan, how he catches a casual conversation. Because it reflects our attitude. And it is attitudes that make and break families these days. When she said he went to his parents' house, there is a sense of difference between them. But if she says he went to my in-laws, she's, made them, adopted them as her own. She's become part of the family. These are very, very small things that Bhagwan would be very keen and insistent on, especially in the training of girls. And since we have all women participants here, I thought it's very relevant to tell you this particular incident. Right. When this is again another excerpt from the relevant discourse, we find people agitating for their rights, but they don't recognize their responsibilities, Swami says. And in the incident that I narrated of the Africa boy, also, what is right to do? What is your right? What is your responsibility? Now, Bhagwan as the avatar actually has every right to do everything that he wants. And if you ask me, the whole world is his responsibility too. Most often, when we demand things out of our family, out of the society, out of the nation, out of the world, we are a little unconscious of our responsibility, Swami says. For example, if I expect that, especially now it's a pandemic crisis and everybody is staying home and locked down, mothers have more work to do than everybody else. So I have a right to a good meal, a good breakfast after this, I might think. But it's also my responsibility, probably, to ensure that I help my mother in the kitchen, I set the table, I serve everybody at the table, or I do the dishes after the breakfast, whichever. So only then there can be harmonious living. Same with the society. It's my right to live in a clean, garbage-free environment. But it's my responsibility not to throw the kuda or the garbage just outside my gate. It is my responsibility, it is my right that the government gives me the facilities that I pay a tax for. But it's my responsibility to ensure that I pay my tax. So at every level, there are certain rights and there are certain responsibilities. And Bhagwan says, a person with unquestionable character will always think of his responsibilities before thinking of his rights. And well, this is not exactly relevant, but it just comes to my mind, so let me share it with you. One occasion, Bhagwan was leaving from Brindavan to Kodaikanal. And it was morning, usually around 5:36. That's when he would leave from Brindavan. So all of us were standing on either sides of Trai Brindavan main door from where Bhagavan would come out. So there was this daughter of a devotee who was standing there, a young girl, and she was holding a tiny silver case with cloves. For Bhagwan would just pop a clove into his mouth sometimes, just hoping to get the blessing. Bhagwan passed her by and then got into the car. And then he, as an afterthought, beckoned to her and asked her, can I take this with me to Kodaikanal? And took the little silver box from her hands. Imagine Bhagwan, he's the one who gives us everything. He doesn't have to take permission. But he said, can I please carry this with me to Kodaikanal? And took it with him. Bhagwan went. The girl was mighty thrilled, obviously, and we were all amused that Bhagwan was taking permission from a little girl for a small thing like this. Anyway, Bhagwan went to Kodaikanal. It was a long stay, usually a month. He came back, and then we would have every evening what is called Trai sessions, where Bhagwan would allow us inside Trai Brindavan, sit on the jhula, and we would all sit around him, and Bhagwan would talk to us every evening. So it was the second or third day after his return. So one day, after he finished the Trai session, Bhagwan would cross the central hall and climb the stairs to his room in the first floor. This girl was from whom he had borrowed the silver um, box, was sitting somewhere near that door on the way to the staircase. Swami climbed up the staircase and then turned back and said, "You keep sitting here," because as soon as Bhagavan would climb up the stairs and he was out of our sight, we would slowly start leaving the hall. Swami said, "Wait, I'm just coming back," he told her. And we were wondering what. He went up, he came back all the way, climbing down the stairs with that tiny little box which he had borrowed from that girl. Bhagwan was coming to return it to her. The Lord of the universe. Anybody would be happy if Bhagwan accepted something from you. But he felt it was his responsibility to return a thing that he borrowed, even when it was his right to simply take it and keep it with himself. So even at his own level, I remember even, I think I said this in the previous talk, there was when Bhagwan was visiting the campus and he was inside the visitors room talking to the VIPs when uh, one of my colleagues was waiting outside the room with a picture of Bhagwan and an ink pen for Bhagwan to sign on it. And she had kept it open and ready. And by the time Bhagwan took a little while to come out, the ink pen had dried, the nib had dried. So when she handed over the picture to Bhagwan, requesting him to sign on it, when Bhagwan was trying to sign on it, it wouldn't write because the nib had dried up. So you know what Swami did, right? Swami um, made people make way for him. He walked to the edge of the corridor where there was a rainwater, canal, and he shook the pen into the canal. That's what we all do when we used ink pens once upon a time. Today we all use ball pens. We would shake the pen, and then a few ink drops would fall where we are, and then we would start writing. But look at Bhagwan's sense of responsibility to keep his surroundings clean. What did he do? He made way in the crowd to where he can actually shake the pen and scatter the ink dots, tiny dots. So when he tells us cleanliness is next to godliness, if Bhagwan shakes the pen, people will go after that drop of ink because it's fallen from his hands. But still, what did he do with a sense of responsibility? He went to found the most appropriate place to shake the pen and drop the ink drops. Yet again, once, somebody, this I read somewhere, Bhagwan was in Kodaikanal, and after he sit with the students and have his meal, and after the meal, Bhagwan would drink water, rinse his mouth with water and drink it up. We all rinse our mouth and throw up the water, right? So one student is very intrigued and very keen to know why Bhagwan was doing this. So when he got an opportunity, he said, "Swami, when you wash your mouth, you don't throw the water out. Instead, you drink the water. Why do you do that?" And you know what Swami said? Look at the sense of responsibility. Swami said, to grow one grain of crop, one grain of food, you know how much of resources go in? The soil, the minerals, the sunlight, the rainwater, the farmer and all his efforts over many months, the harvest. So much of effort goes behind even one grain of food. So I do not like to waste it. Which is why after I finish eating, I do not rinse my mouth and throw the water out or spit the water out. I drink up that water, because even if there are tiny particles of food, we should not waste it. Many such stories come to my mind, but for want of time, I'll go ahead. But what I want to say is, Bhagwan himself embodied in him a sense of great responsibility in small matters to big matters. So, rights, when we demand, we should always be conscious of our responsibilities. Remember the two principles, great principles according to Bhagwan: work and worship. In fact, it would be more in this discourse in summer course, Swami says work and worship. And of course, we all know work is worship. And once again, a number of occasions and a number of times when Bhagwan has told us how if we do our work as an offering to God, that itself becomes worship. In contrast, if you're sitting and doing a lot of worship and neglecting your work, that becomes counterproductive. And I would think a lot of Bhagwan students who are out in the far wide world today are bringing in a good name for Bhagwan also by the way they perform at their work, because for them work is worship. They stand out in their workplace for the quality of work, for the commitment to work, for the dedication to work, because for them work is worshipping Bhagwan. Even for teachers, Bhagwan says, as for teachers, he says, when you look at the students, treat them as prema putras. All teachers should teach their students, considering them as prema putras. Your own children are kama putras, born out of desire, but your students are your prema putras, born out of love. And if we do our work as worship to Bhagwan, Bhagwan always takes care of our work. I will skip a story that comes to my mind because we have much more to go. Bhagwan says, now we have looked at different tips, different aspects to remember in character building, the foundation of which is knowledge of God, choosing God above everything else, trusting God above everything else in the world, and so on. Why should the summer course be for the youth? Because Swami says, if the tank is full of water, only then the taps will get water. If the tank is full of pure water, you get pure water in the taps. If the tank is full of impure water, you get impure water in the taps. If the youth of the country is filled with noble thoughts, powerful ideals, sublime emotions, please notice these three words: noble thoughts, powerful ideals, sublime emotions. Just these three words itself we can pick up for a long 2-hour talk, I would think. But if your thoughts are noble, unselfish, always looking for growth, elevation, progress, ideals are powerful, honest at any point in time, sacrifices that bring you satisfaction, tolerance and forbearance that lead to harmony. Right is right even if nobody does it. If these are your ideals, which are powerful, and your emotions are sublime. Swami says, right? Prema and Kama, the difference in Bhagavad Gita. Kama is love for one person. Prema is love for all. Kama is like stagnant water in which worms, bacteria breed. Prema is like flowing water, flows from one person to the other, and eventually reaches its destination. So even our emotions like love, even about anger, Swami says you can make it sublime. When as teachers, sometimes we have to chastise our students. Swami says it's like the thorn in the rose bush. When we want the flower, we have to take it out without hurting the thorn. Similarly, when we get when we want to correct, Swami says the anger should come only from the lips, never from the heart. That much might be required. So emotions, we have to sublimate our emotions. Human emotions are plenty. We have so many emotions in our hearts and minds all the time as human beings. Ensure they are sublime, they are sacred, they are holy, they are the higher emotions. We can, it's in our hands, it's in our willpower whether we drop ourselves into the lower emotions or we sublimate our emotions. So if the youth of the country are filled with these three noble thoughts, powerful ideals, and sublime emotions, then they will distribute this to the other minds that they come across, which is why Swami invests a lot on the youth of the country. He gives us many examples. Is it that if we have the knowledge of God, if we have chosen God, we trust God, we choose responsibility over our rights, we do all of this, bad tendencies will not come to us? Not really. We are humans, and until we have really evolved to a particular level, bad tendencies that wish to foul our thoughts will perch on our minds. Swami says, now and then, here and there, one or two bad thoughts will continue to come. Like how birds fly and sit on the branches of a tree. Similarly, these birds are, because they're fluttering, they're all the time, restless. It is that reminds me, when you're talking about restlessness and birds. Again, this was 1991 summer course. Swami was giving us, very few of us had arrived on 19th afternoon, and those few of us received the book and the diary and badge from Bhagwan's hands. So Bhagwan was giving it to us in the Kalyan Mandap. I happened to be there. And then, Swami gave us a simple, beautiful piece of advice. During the summer course, we have the Trai Brindavan, the topography. Then you have the Kalyan Mandap where we would go for our meals. Then there is a boys' hostel, and then there is a girls' hostel. So the girls have to always cross the boys' hostel to go to the dining hall for their meals. Look at how protective Bhagwan was. Character building. Swami said, మీరు lines లో వెళ్ళినప్పుడు, when you walk in the lines, keep your eyes down and walk like good girls. And then he said, don't look here, there, everywhere. He was demonstrating it to us. That's what crows do. That is kaki drishti. Crows do that. Now, when I'm talking about birds, when I'm talking about how Swami was particular about women being trained well or students being trained well, why only women? Everybody. Kaki drishti, there is this restlessness. If you watch a crow, it will keep shaking its neck, looking here, looking there, pecking here, pecking there. This lack of focus, that's what restless thoughts do to us. So all these birds that perch in our minds are like that. Bad tendencies, foul thoughts. And what is the remedy Swami has given to us for that? Swami says, drive them away. If you go under a tree which is full of birds and you holler, you shout, and you clap loudly, they will all fly away. Swami says, sing bhajans loudly, clap your hands and sing, so that bad thoughts can leave your mind. Contrast this with sitting passively for a bhajan. Of course, if you are sitting meditatively, that is different. But if you're sitting lazily, passively, you're sitting there bodily, but different thoughts cross your mind. Sometimes we don't even register which bhajan is being sung. So, Nama and Tala, sing loud, clap your hands, because then bad thoughts will leave your mind. Like how when you holler and shout and clap, birds that perch on a tree will leave the tree. Bhagwan says, all of us have great love for Swami. We adore Swami, but our love and adoration are no use if we ignore the teachings of Swami. Again, quickly, I'm so tempted. It's already 8:30, and I'll wind up in 10 minutes. I'm so tempted to tell you another story that happened. This was sometime in the year 1999, and Bhagwan had not come to visit Anandpur campus for some years. We were all very, very unhappy about it, and we decided that we must do something radical to shake Bhagwan, to move him, to make him come. So one day, in a casual conversation in the staff room, all of us said, let's go walking to Patti, do a padayatra. Now, this was a little radical because, firstly, we're all women and belong to Bhagwan's institution. He's so protective. Would he approve of it? Would he like it? What if this becomes like an event? This is 1999. There is no social media as yet. You don't. What if the press gets to know? If they cover, if it comes in the newspaper, would Bhagwan be unhappy with us? We had a lot of doubts. But we said, let's take the risk and do something, because we have to do something really, really, earth shaking to make Bhagwan listen to our prayers. So we decided to go walking. So the entire campus. Then we said, no, from Anandpur all the way to Puttaparthi will take us 2 days. So night comes, all that. So we came to a via media solution. We said we leave at 2 in the morning, reach Chariot, which is 15 kilometers away from Puttaparthi. That's the nearest town. We will walk from there. So we reach Puttaparthi by 9 in the morning, about 4 to 5 hours to walk. Morning 4:30 if we start walking. By 8:39 we enter the mandir. And we said, when bhajan is going on, if we enter the mandir, we can catch Swami's attention and thereby a little bit of time from Swami. So that's what we did. All the people, almost everybody, including the very, very senior teachers who couldn't walk that much, joined us the last 3 kilometers. So we were singing bhajans and we walked, and when we arrived into mandir, bhajan got over, Swami came out, and our then assistant warden, she's very, had a very innocent and free and frank approach to Bhagwan. So as soon as Swami was coming out to go to Yajur Mandir, in those years he used to live in the Purnachandra, she knelt down and told Swami, Swami, మేము అందరూ నడుచుకొని వచ్చాము Swami. We came walking, Swami. Then Swami said, Auna, oh really? And then you know what Swami said? The next line, that's very, very important for all of us. Swami said, Bangaru, anta dooram నడుచుకొని రావక్కర్లేదు. Swami బాటలో నడిస్తే చాలు. It means you don't need to walk all the way and come. If you walk the path that Swami has shown you, that is enough. So beautiful. So look here, our love for Swami should reflect in the way we conduct ourselves. We have to walk the Sai path, the path that Bhagwan has shown, and that is very, very important. Finally, what is the purpose of this whole session? Swami himself tells us. I spoke about Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. I'm returning to that same idea. Swami says, when you let free a cow, it goes running in search of the grass, green grass. It eats up a lot of green grass quickly. And then it comes back, lies down relaxed, and it chews the cud, regurgitates, keeps chewing. Why? Because when it was grazing, it just quickly bit a lot of grass, but it was not digested. Later, it takes it out, chews it and chews it and chews it to digest. This chewing the cud, regurgitation, is very, very important for digestion. And so Swami says, in the last 1 month in that summer course, and maybe 1 week in your case, you have listened to a lot of matters that are important in life, spiritual matters, thought-provoking things, but love of Bhagwan, Bhagwan's love for devotees, the right path to take in life, character building, choosing between right and wrong, discrimination, a lot of things you must have heard about. What is now required is, when the summer course is over, when you go back to your own hometowns, when you log off, what happens is you have to ruminate over what you've heard. Think again and again of what you've heard. Do mananam and then do nididhyasanam, self-reflection, analysis, critically looking at what you've heard. Only then this entire exercise is useful. Simply listening makes some impact, but not all the impact. Very, very important for us to do mananam. Just like you gave me the opportunity through this talk to reflect on the earlier summer courses and lessons that Bhagwan has given us. Why should you do this? Because for a tree to be healthy, the roots have to be healthy. For an individual to have strong character, the values have to be strong. We have to have the clarity about who we are. I am not the body. I am not the mind. That clarity has to come. What do we want in life? I want wealth, power, name, fame, or I want contentment, satisfaction, evolution, transformation. This clarity on what we want, clarity on who we are. These things are very important, and that's why this mananam, this reflection, this session, probably the last in this series of summer course, in this week's summer course, I hope all of us will be able to go back and strengthen our roots through mananam and nididhyasana. I want to close with a very beautiful special episode Bhagwan sent for each of you. And I mean it for each of you. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my senior colleagues, a professor, and I said, ma'am, I have a talk to the Odisha youth on summer showers of 1972. So I'm just preparing for the talk. Immediately, she said, Rani, that was the first summer course I attended. I said, oh, yeah, wow, tell me, ma'am, about it. And of the many things that she told me, this one is the most beautiful. She said the summer course was over and then most people left. About 30 to 40 of them were left to leave the next day. So the next morning, Swami called these few people who were left to talk to them. And when he was talking to them, many of them expressed, Swami, we feel bad to leave you and go. 1 month we have been with you. It has been a beautiful 1 month. We don't want to be separated from you. Expressed all these emotions. And then, you know what Swami did? He waved his palms, created a bundle of visiting cards, distributed to each one who was there. And she told me, believe me, the number was exact. Swami had created the exact number of visiting cards and distributed to each of them who was there. So this visiting card that you see is from the 1972 valedictory session of the summer course from a participant who has it in her altar even today. She was kind enough and gracious enough to share it with me last night. And I thought it was Bhagwan sending you his blessings by giving you a visiting card. Because when a person gives you a visiting card, he's telling you, I'm available to take your call. I'm available if you want to visit me. You can take an appointment with me. You will never be disappointed. Believe me, if our appointments are with God, we will never meet disappointments. With that, I want to bring an end to my talk. Thank you, Saira.
Sairam, like we just learned what Bhagwan says, character is our wealth, good conduct is our treasure, knowledge of God is the foundation of both. Ma'am, with the experience pervading here, we just lived all the moments that you experienced. We immensely Thank you for infusing the seed of knowledge into us, giving the courage to water it with character and grow as ideal human beings. Character building is a venture we all must dwell into. Ma'am, the time has passed so quick that we just don't want it to get over. Thank you so much. The entire summer course team is grateful to you for giving your precious time to us and imparting the tenet of sadhana into all of us. Thank you so much. I express my thankfulness to the esteemed guests, devoted participants, and the entire summer course team for their persistent participation and enthusiasm. Dear sisters, every duty marks a beautiful ending with His blessings and only His blessings. Premamai Sai Ma, we offer today's session at your lotus feet and convey our deepest gratitude for being the voice and the words. Our prayers are only to walk beside you, experiencing your love and compassion. Swami, thank you so much for everything. We love you like a never ending ocean and an ever expanding sky. Dearest Lord, please bless us with your bhajan and make our lives a melodious one. Jai Sai Ram.
Truth is my breath, this is my food. Love is my love is my form. Truth is my breath, this is my food. My life is my message, expansion is my life. My life is my message, no reason for love, no season for love. No birth, no death, no birth, no death. Love is my form, truth is my faith, peace is my food. Love is my form, truth is my
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।